what this acronym means. One say there is human-machine interaction, but my favorite was theory from one professor that says that it's actually human-machine interaction, not interface. It doesn't have to be related to screen as we think about it when we hear design. It can be also when you enter the supermarket and sensors are feeling that human appeared and doors are automatically open. So there's no interface in that sense. Users are operating, each of them completely different than regular devices as we know. So for example, they have gloves or they use it outside. So here natural light comes in that can conflict the visibility on the screen and so on. The other thing is that if they are in some kind of machines, very often those machines are shaking.
Hi and welcome to the next episode of CuteTalk. This is a program in which we talk about various software development topics, things around our business, and about our expertise. So it includes C++, Qt, embedded software development, cross-platform applications, but also UX and UI designing. My name is Lukas Kosiński. I am the CEO of Sci Studio, QML consulting company. We help our customers by providing them with skilled Qt developers and professional designing services. Today, I am delighted to be joined by Martina, a talented UX UI designer whose extensive portfolio covers a wide range of projects from designing mobile apps, websites, to crafting interfaces for medical devices, industrial machines, robots, specialized CAD software, and even HMIs for excavators. In the past, Martina ventured into the realms of animation and graphic design. She was even a part of a team that animated a movie nominated for Oscar Prize. And whenever Sci Studio undertakes some more comprehensive project with some UI to be done, I am fortunate to have Martina by my side. And in addition to her professional achievements, Martina did a lot of master degrees. I don't even remember how many. And how did we meet? Totally by accident. Martina, I'm happy to have you here.
Thank you for your invitation.
So, usually I start every episode in a way that I ask my guests what they have been doing recently. So, maybe the first question, just to warm you up, what was the last screen that you have designed?
I'm not gonna tell you what was the last screen because it's nothing interesting, but I will tell you what was the last exciting screen, and this is one of the screen for medical robots. So as you mentioned, and this is one of the project that I did with your team regarding the robot who is doing operation on human spine. So that was cool.
Indeed, it was. I'm thinking about being a patient zero there. But anyway, you suggested that because the topic of our episode of this recording is best practices for UX UI design for HMI displays, I should first explain how I understand HMI, just in order to check whether there are differences in a way someone with more like a programmer's background, how such a person understands HMI, and how you as a professional designer would understand that. So yeah, for me, HMI, short for human machine interface, is a way a person communicates with a hardware, with a machine, in a sense that a machine is not a computer It's not a typical desktop, it's not tablet, it's not phone. It's rather a machine standing somewhere. It's some device of a special purpose, and there is some kind of a software that user has to control. And interface in that short does not really mean that there has to be a touchable screen there attached to such a machine. It could be also controlled by physical buttons or some other controls. So that's my understanding. So maybe now could you briefly explain what HMI is?
Yeah, so one of my master's degrees is in interaction design that I studied here in Norway.
Who
And
would thought?
there was professors who had also different theories about what this acronym means. One say there is human machine interaction, but my favorite was a theory from one professor that says that it's actually human machine interaction, not interface. And I think that when we talk about interfaces, is very often connected to some graphic UI elements, but again, as you said, it doesn't have to be related to screen as we think about it when we hear design. It can be also when you enter the supermarket and sensors are feeling that human appeared and doors are automatically open. So there's no interface in that sense. For me, also, very often this term is connected to industrial machines when we are talking about robots or big machines that require specialists, as we call it, advanced users, to be operated by. For me, this term is much wider, and anytime when human is interacting with some technical device, this is for me HMI.
Okay, I think that I got it. So maybe now you mentioned machines in industrial devices. Why is it important to have like HMI in those sectors, in industrial automation sector, in automotive sector, in robot sector, in medical sector? Why is it important in such industries? Why
Mhm.
why producers of those stuff, of those devices, um, are doing that? Why are they
Mhm.
so committed to invest more in having software and HMI on their devices?
So I think the most important thing here is when we are talking about critical design, which means design regarding um, projects when human life is important. So any mistake can lead to death, for example, and it can be project not only related to uh, machine that is doing surgery, as we were talking before, but it also can be related to military operations or other companies that are producing some elements have robots, and these robots can do a mistake that can cost human life. So this is the most important to avoid errors. And very often we are blaming human for doing errors, but from design perspective, the most important is that I prepare design that error is not possible, that whatever some kind of sensors or data is showing that explosion is coming or maybe some operation is conflicting, already human is um, inform about it via interface, for example. So I think that the safety reason is the most important, but also very often when it comes to those industrial machines, users are operating each of them completely different than regular devices as we know. So for example, they have gloves or they use it outside, so here natural light comes in that can conflict the visibility on the screen and so on. So it's also important the context of where the machine is being used, and as I said before, the most important I would say are the safety reasons.
Preventing those mistakes. The first thing that I thought is, oh my god, the software has to be tested so well, because otherwise it's not going to be uh, operator's fault, by programmer's fault. So that was the first thing that came to my mind. Okay, you started talking about the about those gloves that operator of HMI may wear, about that daylight. So yeah, maybe now, what are the differences in designing UI for HMIs? Yeah, compared to regular UX UI designing.
Mhm. So the first thing is that with regular apps on the mobile, they are available for everyone. But when we design for industrial machine, the user is advanced, which means that this user has a specific knowledge in specific job that he or she is doing. So this is the first thing, that we are designing for advanced users that already have knowledge, and also those are users that will be somehow on board to job. So when it comes to buying a ticket with mobile phone, you don't get any lessons how to do it. You expect that by default you will understand, and with your intuition you will be able to do it. But when you come to the machine, you first have to have some safety training. You need specific clothes. You need to have some kind of knowledge. Someone is showing you how to do stuff. So it means that in this type of design, there will be some features that may look like a secret knowledge for regular users, but for those advanced users, they are getting training how to use them. So this would be the first difference. The other thing is the other difference, it depends on what actually we are designing. So it's good to know um, what are what is the typical user in this industry. Very often when it comes to machines on construction sites, it will be adult male, and then already we know that this will be a big hands. So for example, buttons needs to be bigger, or we already know that this machine mostly uh, or almost all the time at least, is outside. So like I said, those factors of sunlight may be important. Then we need to know, is this person is working during the day or during the night, and adjust to all of those conditions.
Okay, I see. So could you give us some more examples on distinctive users that you have in mind, just to just to boost our imaginary, so then we can better imagine what we are exactly talking about. Who are those users?
Mhm. So for
You mentioned construction workers.
Yes, so for example, here the industry is dominated by males. So, like I said, there's going to be a big hands involved, but also they very often wear gloves because they work outside. The weather is different. So, this is another obstacle. The other thing is that if they are in some kind of machines, very often those machines are shaking. So, it may be not that easy to press the button. And also, those screens are not like mobile phones where users have it just in front of the face. It's gonna be some arm distance um, between the user and the interface, which also means that maybe fonts need to be bigger. As always, I say the user testing will give the most insight. Very often, if I'm designing here on my computer, I don't have a possibility to test it with the user, because let's say that the project is being done in another country. So I'm always very excited and waiting for those moments. But there's also sometimes we are discussing possibilities of sending me some kind of a screen, because it's completely different when you do it on your screen and when you can test it on real device having on your hand. So this is the one type of users. The other type, going back to this example with the surgical robot, what was for me very surprising, it's kind of logic that everything is sterile during the operation, but the foil is literally on every single element, including the screen. So even though a chirurg has gloves, he or she is pressing on the screen, which is foiled. And again, there's very strong light, and this kind of foil can a bit affect visibility. And I always wonder how sensitive screen need to be so that user has no problem to press buttons and use it. But I was very surprised that on testing it looked very well.
Okay, great. Um, yeah, wow, yeah. So maybe now, are there any like key design principles when it comes to HMI designing?
I would say, first of all, as a designers, what we need to do is to defend and represent users. Very often, we are getting requirements before we test it with the users, and those requirements are given by product manager, by client, when they are discussing and negotiating the contract. So very often they are just comparing features that they want to have and hours that they can spend on it. But what is very important is to interview user uh, or do something that we call field study, which means to meet the user in their own habitat, see how they work, and build their requirements upon that. If we cannot, then at least do user testing after we prepare some kind of prototype. It doesn't have to be ready, but confront it with the user. It always gives a completely different findings than I expected. Every single time I'm testing the software and I have my predictions what may go wrong, there's always some new findings that we didn't thought about. And what is very important here is to document it. So write a short report, do recording of the session, and then present it to the client, because when client will see that user is not able to do this or that or is not understanding something, they will immediately agree for some changes. So then it's also a way to stretch budget a bit.
Okay, so that was one design principle, just to think as a target user of the HMI. But I would add to it one thing. When I think about that advanced user, a doctor, a surgeon, with somebody lying on a table. I'm operating this person right now. Um, I would like my software and therefore also the HMI to be reliable, easy to use, and like to be. I know it's like quite advanced piece of software. It's like a top league of software quite often, but at the same time, it has to be quite a dummy in use. I mean, I should be able to do things fast. I should be able to navigate over the software fast. I should have all the most important features, most critical features in a reach, right?
Mm-hmm. Here in Norway, there is one word that I learned. I mean, there are many words that I learned, but one of my favorites is nok, and nok means enough. And when I moved to Norway, I actually moved because I wanted to move to Scandinavia because I was enchanted by Scandinavian design. During one of my studies in Poland, once we have a guest lecture about Scandinavian fonts, and I was admiring how the design is so simple, clean, but it's not German minimalistic, and it's not American wow, fantastic, full of glitter. So when I moved here, I asked designers how you do this, that it's so light and simple, and they say that you have to, while designing, feel when it's knock, so when it's enough, and then leave the design. So very often, when it comes to those advanced projects, they look very complex, and maybe sometimes we like when it looks complex. It makes us feel more like a specialist, at least from the side. But as you said, it's important that it's reliable and we can quickly do most important actions. So there have to be some kind of simplicity involved. And every time I'm starting this type of project, I promise you, I'm extremely scared and I don't understand anything. And I'm thinking, how can I do project for this or for that? And then while starting or trying to understand it, I'm using as simple as possible ways of communicating to users those actions that are being possible to be done. And it appears that it's the best solution. So I agree that if we can somehow simplify those complex actions, then it's only benefits. The other thing is that simplification is also required in UI in the sense of making those buttons bigger, easier to click, those fonts bigger. But then very often the project looks like for kids. And my friends used to say there's difference between Lego and Duplo. And then when you have to do everything big and very clear, it looks like those like Duplo, like those toys for kids. What I'm also trying to find is to find this limit where stuff doesn't need to be as expanded as screen allows, but enough, again, knock big so that the user sees it and knows how to use it, but we are not designing something that looks inappropriate. So something that can also look stylish and elegant.
Yeah, two things. First, a short off topic. Martina is so committed to art and design that she changed like relatively nice Poland to called Oslo. And the second thing, um, Martina is quite good at convincing our customers that she is right. I mean, sometimes they realize that after some time, but usually when Martina says that it's enough, that it's not, then it's probably close to be what the target users really need. And if it's different, not the project manager will say that, but the target user, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe something about consistency. I mean, that's another design principle that would be important for me. I mean, often larger projects consist of several components, which includes, for example, several robots, several devices, and each of them have own HMI, often quite different. I mean, for example, one device could be controlled by physical buttons. One device could have a screen but smaller, and the other one main device could be completely different. How important is consistency in designing HMIs?
So the most important is UX. As long as user understand it, how to use it, I can accept it. But again, from design perspective, I would like to create some kind of language that will be understood on each device. So the consistency can be discussed on two levels. The one is when it comes to interface, and here it's good to have some graphic components that sends the same message. Very often it's being cut down just to have a logo on everything, but that's not the point. Even while designing logo on visual identification, nowadays is more and more popular something that we call dynamic branding, which is that many brands, for example, clothing, they from one side have their logo on the clothes, but also they have lots of digital gadgets, maybe up for measuring running if it's a sport brand, and so on. So the thing is that the logo and the message can work on many different interfaces, so to say. And the most important for me is to keep the character. It doesn't have to be exactly the same element in exactly the same color, even, because when we do something that is physical, very often we buy Pantone color that is specifically this color. But in the digital world, we don't pay for using different hex. And sometimes we just want to give a feeling of something, let's say, sterile. So we use a bit brighter colors, but again, not full white because it will hurt eyes constantly looking at super bright screen. But we can use some kind of colors and shades in order to give this feeling. So for me, the most important is giving the character, not specifically graphical elements, but use this visual language to make it feel, okay, this is this brand. And when it comes to UX, the operations should have quite similar flow. So user, doesn't matter if is doing stuff manually or digitally, has the same understanding of steps. I think that would be important.
This phrase that you have used, um, visual language, it's so to the point. I mean, that's exactly what language is. It's a way you communicate with somebody, right? Yeah, excellent phrase, excellent term.
There is
In Go
there are
ahead.
many brands that don't need to use logo anymore to present themselves. For example, the characteristic red of Coke that
Yeah,
very often can be shown in different contexts without logo, and people will understand the context. Or McDonald's very often have advertising when they don't use logo, but there is this element of French fries that is the red box with just a small fragment of this yellow arc that is on the
yeah,
packaging, and it already gives user the feeling and understanding what brand I am using. The same now with the Barbie movie. You just see the candy pink and you know that this is the movie, or just the B. You don't need to see the whole Barbie name. You know it's about Barbie, yeah? Or also face of the actress is very much recognizable, and she was called Barbie much before she got the role, so it already brings you this feeling. So this kind of connections can be used in order to build in our head the understanding and the feeling. So design and this visual stuff are just as suggestions. The rest is in your head and you're gonna connect the dots and build it.
yeah, excellent. In the meantime, I would like to encourage our listeners and our viewers to react to this video, to leave a like, to hit that subscribe button, to leave a comment under this video. Maybe you could share some of your experiences regarding this topic. And yeah, I have one other question noted. Of course, there is a lot of other topics we could discuss in more details, including like tools that are used in the world of Qt projects regarding designing. Yeah, but we don't have much time for this. Maybe in the other episode. I wanted to ask you that whether when there are some specific conditions given where HMI displays are used in particular contexts, in particular conditions, how do you approach like colors, contrast, brightness, things like that? I have a feeling that you are going to say that it depends on the target user, but let's see.
Of course, the users are always the most important. Uh, so very often, or most of the time, I'm getting some requirements regarding this, and this is a set of colors that brand is being identified with. So I already know that those are colors that I'm gonna be using. And again, as I said, in digital world, I'm very often adding some colors that in total it looks like a brand, it matches the brand, but in digital world sometimes we need a bit more variance. So this is the one thing. When it comes to contrast, then the most important for me is where the screen will be used. Is it some kind of machine that will be only used by night by some workers in some
Mm-hmm.
kind of factory, or is it this robot that is used by surgeons in the place when they have lots of extra light? So this will definitely affect what mode I would like to use. What is also the content that will be on the interface? If I know that interface will present some kind of views that are very dark, I don't want to have contrasty white surroundings. I prefer it to a bit blend in so we don't take attention from the content that's supposed to be presented. So to sum up, a context of the environment, the and also the content what will be inside, and yes, of course, users, because if it's most of the users are males, then we know that statistically they are much more often colorblind, so probably some stronger contrast will be used here, for example.
I don't feel offended. Yeah. Okay. So, Martina, I don't have any more questions. Thanks a lot. Under this video, in the description, I'm leaving links to our UX UI professional services. So if you need our help, go ahead, check it out. And also there are links to Martina's portfolios and also to Martina's Figma profile. Martina is quite active in the community of Figma users, and there are a lot of open projects that you can just click and download. For example, if you are a programmer, you can check them out and train coding by just by creating something real. I mean, just take one of Martina's project, download it, and then code, for example, in QML, the user interface in a way you would do that for a real project. Yeah, so thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Martina. Thanks for being with me today. I enjoyed our talk a lot. I hope that we will record some other episode in the near future.
Yes, you're most welcome, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Martina, again. And yeah, we see each other in the next episode.